When we think of Coors Field, we first think about the endless home runs that seemingly never land there. But what about the other side of the ball? How many Colorado Rockies do you recall in the Cy Young race? Well, they're one of only 2 teams to never have an award winner. Ever seen a no-hitter at Coors? You might have, but it's only ever happened once. It's not often talked about what it means to pitch at Coors Field. We know the increased altitude in the ballpark as a whole creates a hitter's playground, but what pitching looks like at a mile high is far more influential on the insane offense we see at Coors than you think. If you like what you're seeing today, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another video from Raving Sports. It is impossible to pitch at Coors Field. For every reason that balls fly farther at Coors, there's a reason that makes pitching that much harder. In Denver, Colorado, the air density is only 82% of what it is at sea level. The air is also significantly drier than at every other ballpark in the league. What does that mean? The weather and air significantly alters the break of a pitch. It's called the Magnus effect. The pitch a guy throws in Los Angeles is going to look very different in Denver. On average, a pitch with backspin such as a fastball will generally end up dropping about 4 more inches on average. Take a look at Trevor Bauer's fastball at sea level and at a mile high. Bauer's fastball sits at 3.9 inches above the average rise in MLB. Apply the 4 inches in drop, Bauer now has an average fastball. The player who once led all of Major League Baseball in fastball rotations per minute now has a mediocre pitch, all just because of the ballpark he is in. How about breaking balls? It's just as a significant difference. Curveballs lose around 4 inches of break. Changeups and sinkers lose inches of run. The Magnus effect impacts the push and pull on the rotation and movement of a pitch. It gets more and more present the higher you go in altitude. So, with Coors at the highest altitude in the league, the Magnus effect is the most present. Take a look at the Rockies' pitching numbers in their 27 seasons at Coors. They have never had a team finish the season with an ERA less than 4. The closest they've ever come is a 4.41 ERA in 2009. This inflated team ERA comes largely from their 81 games at a mile high. The trend continues looking back many years in the organization. The Rockies have never had a better home ERA than road ERA. This goes for nearly every other pitching statistic beyond just simple ERA. Opponent average, strikeouts, hits, runs, home runs. I could go on and on. The Rockies are just not good at pitching at home, but neither is anyone else who takes them out in the stadium. Remember when I mentioned Bauer earlier? He's just one example of a pitcher who has vocalized why Coors is so hard.
I kept dotting fastballs down and away. Yep, I executed that one, ball. Same thing, there's a cluster of 8 of them on top of each other. I swore I was getting super frustrated on the mound because I'm those are strikes, I know those are strikes. And I'd go and I'd look and it was 2 inches off the plate. I'm what the hell, I know those are strikes. I couldn't make the adjustment. When I looked at it after the game, my fastball was running 3 inches less than it did normally.
Obviously, it's going to be different for a pitcher who only sees Coors a couple games a year, maybe even every few years. But why is it still hard for the Rockies to adjust? They play 81 games a year at Coors. They also play 81 games outside of Coors. Sure, a pitcher could adjust his arm slot for his fastball to account for the increased drop, but now he goes on the road with this new adjustment and he misses every fastball 4 inches above the zone. It's a lose-lose situation here for the Rockies. Adjust to pitch better at home, pitchers struggle on the road. Keep the same pitching habits and pitch well on the road, struggle at home. Baseball is a game of inches, and these inches are killer for the Rockies. There have been few pitchers who have neared conquering Coors Field. Hideo Nomo threw the most unlikely no-hitter in Major League Baseball history. It was 1996, one of the most prolific offensive seasons at Coors in maybe in MLB history. There was an average 1.76 home runs per 9 innings and a season average 7.06 ERA for all pitchers at Coors. The odds were stacked against Nomo for every reason in the book. He shoved for 9 innings, allowing no hits against the Rockies. It remains the only no-hitter to ever be thrown at Coors Field. There is so much more to talk about with this no-hitter beyond just the overall Coors thing, but I won't get into it today. It has now been almost 27 years since Nomo's incredible feat, and well, it's safe to say the offense is still buzzing at a mile high. Remember that Cy Young fact way back at the beginning of this video? Colorado and Texas are the only two teams to never have a Cy Young winner. Sorry to throw you under the bus in this one, Rangers, but you do have Jacob deGrom now. There has never been a pitcher good enough to be named a league best who threw the majority of their games in Colorado. Ubaldo Jimenez is the Rockies' leader in career ERA with a 3.66 mark. Most teams' career leaders hold a sub-3 ERA. Not in Colorado. A Rocky has finished the year with a sub-3 ERA just twice. Jimenez did it in 2010 with a 2.88. Kyle Freeland did it in 2018 with a 2.85. Sub-3 just twice. Some teams have multiple pitchers reach that mark in a single season. In that 2010 season, Jimenez finished in third in National League Cy Young voting. For Freeland in 2018, he was fourth in voting. These two seasons are the closest the Rockies have ever gotten to hosting a Cy Young winner. So, we know Rockies pitchers are not great at Coors. What if they leave? Tyler Anderson is a great recent example of this. In his 4-season career with Colorado, he holds a 4.69 ERA. The starter has now played 4 seasons with other teams. His ERA with them, 4.03, a 66-point drop, just for changing home ballparks. In 2022, Anderson recorded a career-low 2.57 ERA. His lowest in purple and black was 3.54. He is one of many examples of a pitcher who left the graveyard at Coors and found success in his new park. John Gray is another. He spent his first 7 seasons with Colorado. He had a career 4.59 ERA there. In his first season with the Texas Rangers, he spun a 3.96. He dropped it by 63 points overnight, just because he switched home ballparks. The other way around, brutal for guys coming to Coors for the first time. The Rockies acquired Wade Davis prior to the 2018 season. This was an exciting pickup for Rockies fans. Finally a workhorse in the bullpen. Davis was an all-star the previous 3 seasons before going to Colorado. In 2015, he held an 0.94 ERA. In 2016, he saw a 1.87, and in 2017, it was a 2.30. Jumped to his first season with Colorado, a 4.13 ERA. His second season with the Rockies, an 8.65. How does a guy go from being a back-to-back-to-back all-star to one of the worst closers in the league? Coors Field is why that happens. Davis started his career with the Tampa Bay Rays, whose stadium is at sea level. His 3 all-star seasons came with the Kansas City Royals. The elevation at Kauffman is just 856 feet. Davis's home stadium increased elevation by nearly 5,000 feet, and it showed in his game. He's not the only one. Jake McGee is another great example of a failed pitcher at Coors Field. Through 6 seasons with Tampa Bay, he recorded a 2.77 ERA. In 4 seasons with Colorado, it was a 4.78 ERA for him. I could go on and on with these comparisons between pitchers at Coors Field performing better with a different home stadium. The biggest thing to take from all of this, Rockies pitching staffs have always performed better on the road than at home. The difficulty of throwing at a mile high inflates pitching numbers and makes being dominant on the mound nearly impossible. So, what's the solution to this? There's no straight answer.
Guys joke and talk about that, like when we at home we're going to throw, 4-seamers, curveballs, and changeups, and then we go on the road we're going to go throw sliders and sinkers, and because that's what moves on the road versus what moves at home.
Longtime Rockies pitchers have tried their hands at changing their game to adapt to Coors. Some look to throw for more ground balls, others for fly balls. They tried to master a breaking ball that moved with the air at high altitude. To this point, no one has mastered it, and we really don't have much insight on what might fix it. Rockies manager Bud Black sure won't give us any secrets.
Anywhere. If you're a pitcher who pitches at the top of the zone, pitch at the top of the zone. You'll have success. That's probably why you got to the big leagues. If you're a ground ball pitcher, pitch at the bottom of the zone. That's probably how you got to the big leagues. Yeah, there's an old saying, dance with who brung you.
In its 27-year history, Coors Field has always been the best hitter's park in all of baseball. It's also been the worst pitcher's park. That side of it just doesn't get as much attention. Rockies pitchers have struggled to battle the altitude for years and will continue that for many to come. Will it be Kyle Freeland or Herman Marquez who escaped the pitcher's graveyard? We'll just have to wait and see. But for now, just think. If hitters get discredited so much at Coors Field, pitchers at Coors deserve some extra recognition, right?